Hi guys, welcome back. In today's tutorial, we're going to do some bullet journaling with brush pens. Now, brush pens are especially good for journaling because they are great for hand lettering as well as illustrating. So let's get started. Hey guys, my name's Shayda Campbell, and on this channel I do art tutorials, so if that's your thing, consider subscribing. Alright, so we're going to kick things off here. I'm doing a weekly spread, a one-page weekly spread, and I just want to get it started with a little bit of ripped paper and washi tape. It's a great way to add some color, to add some definition, and to sort of space out your page. So you can see me just putting a little bit of tape, and then I'm also adding a little tiny calendar of the month. That way I can just concentrate on this one page and I don't have to constantly flip back if I kind of want to see where I'm at in the month or what I might be able to do for next week. So there's my page. I'll be using some pigma microns from Sakura, some of the smaller nibs like the 005 and the 003. I've also got a gray triplus fine liner and a white gel pen. Those are just great all-purpose tools when it comes to journaling. And I've picked out a few different washi tapes. I'm sure you can see a color scheme emerging here. And finally, I have 5 brush pens, and these are from a company called Arteza, who makes art supplies. And you can see here I've picked out a color palette. So of course, surprise, I'm going with blues and grays. And when I take the lid off, you can see that brush pen has a very fine pointed nib. And we'll talk about that in a second. But here I've just done a test pad and I'm trying out different colors. So I'm making sure that those blues and grays look good together. So I've chosen my color palette. Now I want to practice with my brush pens. And you can see what that fine nib can really do. When you press harder on it, you get that nice thick downstroke. So when you pull the pen towards your body, you get that thicker stroke. And then when you just go light and delicate with your pressure, you get that very thin, delicate upstroke. Now, brush lettering is a whole topic, and we haven't gone into it ever, I don't think, in depth on the channel. But there are a lot of great resources out there online and on Instagram. And it's just one of those things that I just suggest practicing, but also you need a good set of brush pens. For a long time, I didn't think I was any good at brush lettering. And then I got these pens actually, and they were really good. They just have a really good nib. Anyways, I digress. You can see here what I've done is I did my lettering in a light gray, and then I went back in with the darker gray and I just did the very tops of the letters, and then I went back in, and I'm going to do this all over again. I went back in with the pigma micron, the very fine nib, and I just put a little shadow on that lettering. So there I've done the brush lettering in the light gray. Now you can see me using that very fine nib on the darker gray brush pen to just add a little bit of contrast and color to the tops of the letters, and then I'm using the smallest nib from the Sakura set to add a bit of shadow on the right hand side of each letter. Here you can see me just adding some contrast and definition to my calendar using the brush pen. And like I said in the intro, they're so versatile, and it's really because of that fine tip. It's almost like you have a paintbrush that you can use in your journal. And it allows you to draw and almost paint with that brush, and you can add all kinds of definition and shading to your letters. You really want to treat it like it's this round little paintbrush, and you can use the very fine point, or you can turn it on its side and get to these larger, messier washes of color. So play around and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve with these brush pens. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going back in with my pigma micron and adding some of the sort of my to-do list for the week. And of course on my to-do list I have shoot today's video, which is this video. It's all so meta. It's all happening right now. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna draw a little camera, since I'm gonna be filming and shooting all day on Monday. And I think that's sort of what is fun about creating these weekly layouts, is that you get to let go and create and doodle. So have fun. If you're I'm going out for sushi, you could draw some sushi, and it helps create definition on the page. You know, dividing space creates space. So it'll help keep the page looking organized, and it's also just fun to doodle. And I'm doodling up some cute flowers and leaves, and again, I can use the point of the brush to do these very, very detailed leaf designs and twigs and berries right there. And then if I want to do a flower, I can use more of the body of this brush to lay down some color for a flower. And then of course I come back in with my Pigma micron and I just add that definition and shadow and do a little bit of line shading. So by using those two tools together, you can create some really tiny, beautiful illustrations and doodles for your bujo. So here I'm just sort of creating a little border to go around that calendar. As you can see, I've done a line border, just a simple line, hand-drawn line, but then I've also, put some nice florals in the corner. So just creating space by dividing space and using the doodles to help divide up the space. Again, you can see I'm using the very tip of that brush pen to add some beautiful definition to those flowers, and then using my artist pen to add even more line shading and detail. And I keep going in with the brush pens and adding a little more color. So just adding some gray to those numbers and dates. And then I continue to add flowers and just sort of looking around the page. Where could I use another floral design? Where do I need to divide up the space a little bit? And I'm sticking within my color palette. And as I showed at the beginning, I tested out my 5 colors at the beginning on a scrap piece of paper, so I don't have to think about it very much. I've just got the pens that I want to use at my side. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going back in and I'm adding some flowers over top of the ripped paper. In this way, it almost begins to look like you've put a sticker on the page because it goes over top of the ripped paper as well as the initial page. And then I'm adding some, magazine stuff that I just ripped out of a magazine. If you find a cool photo of the beach or flowers or whatever inspires you, that's another great way to just add a little oomph and color and design, a nice design element to your page. And up here, I'm using my white gel pen to just put week of March 12th to 16th. So having that white gel pen is really nice because you're able to, as you saw with the flower at the bottom, you're just able to sort of make the things that you put on top of the ripped paper really pop. So if you're using a darker ripped paper, the white gel pen is key. And you can add some cute little quotes here. I'm just putting think happy thoughts. And again, you guys can see this is not perfect. I'm just, writing in a simple cursive and print, and it's not meant to be perfect. It's just meant to be one weekly spread. There's 52 weeks in a year, so you have 52 chances to work out your doodles and lettering. The last thing I'm going to show you here is that I'm just doing a simple line drawing of a flower. And this one I'm doing a little larger, and then I'm going to use the brush pens behind this drawing to sort of give a watercolor look. So I'm just filling it in, making it nice and detailed. So putting the dots in the middle to represent the stamen, a little bit of stippling, putting lots of line shading on the leaves and petals to represent the veining in the leaves and the shadow on the flower. And then once I've finished my sketch or my illustration, I'm going to come back in with my brush pen, and I'm using the gray. And instead of just coloring it in, I'm sort of adding this splotchy, crazy color. I want it to look like I just put down a little bit of watercolor and then put the illustration over top. So your brush pens are very versatile like that. They don't need to be used for precision work all the time. That's what my layout looked like when I finished it. It's definitely a little outside of my comfort zone, not the minimal, clean style that I usually go for, but it is my color palette and my botanicals, so I had fun trying something different with this one. I hope you enjoyed the video tutorial. Let me know what else you'd like to see when it comes to bullet journaling. If you're interested in the Arteza brush pens, there is a link in the description, and I will see you Friday with a new tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe.